the panel members that are going to come and answer some questions. We have one of our physicians in our practice, if she's still here she is, Dr. Schwope, and then one of our midwives, Kim Warfit, and then Tia Castellanos, she is a lactation consultant in the community as well, and Mary Beth from St. Luke's is also going to, so it's actually 4 of them, sorry. St. Luke's we're trying to figure out who's going to be here, so it's Mary Beth, and so we're going to just have them take a seat, and Erin is going to host this. Have a seat. I'll get one more chair. Yeah, why don't you guys take those chairs and we'll get one between us or one for I mean, not really. I think we'll just kind of initially just ask your question loudly, and if we can't do it, we'll try to run a mic, but maybe we can just speak really loud.
I can come to you with the mic, you don't need to project, but
yes.
Who has a question?
Question, comments, anything.
Or are you guys just waiting? Stand up.
Come on, Mom.
I actually have a post-lactation question. I nursed my baby until he was 2, and while I was 4 months pregnant, and since then my nipples have become dry and scabby. Should I be doing something? Is that normal?
So her question was, she breastfed her other baby until about 2 years old, and she's pregnant again, and her nipples have become very dry and kind of itchy, and what can she do for that?
It's been like scabby almost all like, here. I heard that.
But you're not nursing anymore.
No, it's been 2 months.
So you stopped nursing 2 months ago. Dry, scabby?
Like almost like they're dry, they'll peel off. Just the nipple itself, not the areola. Are you sure it's not should you be leaking at all?
Yeah, I mean, it's not colostrum, it's not.
No, I can't express anything. I just thought maybe I should be putting lanolin on or something. Coconut oil.
I mean, it's possible. I mean, it's possible it could be yeast if you're having an issue with yeast. That is a possibility. And you're not nursing, so you don't know. Like, you're not seeing it on the baby, right? So, I mean, you could go to someone like her, and she could look at that that way. But yeah, no.
Is it itching? No, not at all. It just caught me off guard in the shower one time. I was using my loofah, and they started like exfoliating, and I was like, what's going on here?
Okay, I wouldn't do that.
Yeah, I wouldn't.
We don't recommend exfoliation.
Oh no, I wasn't like exfoliating. I was just cleansing, and it started to heal, and then I was like, oh, this heals away.
Did you heard the myth out there about preparing breasts and using loofahs? And you've heard that from moms that they shouldn't be doing that, and that's what I thought you meant.
No.
That could be drying your breast, so if you're doing too much cleaning and things like that, I would possibly just, use some oil.
Because you were going from your memory glands, you're releasing that oil, and if you're sort of in between, it's possible that that's no longer there. Maybe try a little bit of oil.
Pregnancy hormones or
Maybe try coconut oil, which is sort of.
I'm going to be so rough on yourself.
That's okay.
No, good question.
All right, next. Who else has a question? And then the one in the orange is next.
All right, I'll show you. The idea of breastfeeding being kind of experiencing scarcity within it really does perpetuate situation. And I don't know, maybe we like the whole everybody calls it liquid gold. You know what I mean? Changing our vocabulary would somehow help us listen more successfully. Like I'm not sure if that's something that everybody here has power to go with that frame. You think that changing vocabulary is something that would help the community in general.
So her comment, more than a question, but what she was saying was that that as a society we do tend to kind of perpetuate the idea that breast milk is something that's rare and should be like guarded, like a lot of people call it liquid gold, and yes, it's very precious, but maybe if we changed our vocabulary to make it something that where it was more common and where people believed that there was plenty of it to go around, people might not have that fear about not making enough, and they're not, just in general, not being enough.
So, an observation, just sort of
Like a cultural observation. In the last, so I've been working in lactation for 16 years, and there wasn't this concern 16 years ago. I didn't see this concern in the community, and I think it's measurable, right? So it's the measuring of breast milk that has sort of perpetuated this cause for concern. I never usually talk about myself, but I breastfed for 11 years. And I never once pumped ever. So in 11 years, I never once knew how much I was producing. I cannot tell you, I do not know. I have 3 very healthy, now you're going to do the math on 11 years and 3 kids, very healthy children. But the thing is, what I see is that what's changed is that every mom is purchasing a pump while she's pregnant. Every mom is pumping in the first couple of weeks when I tell them not to. And so every mom is measuring this quantity, and that's really what I'm visually seeing as the problem. That there's a problem.
And I liked what the doctor in the documentary said about, all you're proving is how much you can pump. It's not telling you how much you can make or how much the baby's getting. It's just how much you're pumping.
I think it's also a problem of working moms.
Well, also, I think when we start working, after we've been home, even if we've never pumped really at home, but we have to go back to work and there has to be, a supply for the baby, then we're obsessing with how much we're getting. And is it enough for the baby? And so then, I did that because I had to work, all mine. And then you're just sitting there, counting the ounces, and then how much do they eat at each feeding? And it's just, stressing you out, I think. And like that lady was saying, she's the cracked milk mom or whatever. It's you're trying to pump all the time because you're worried about your supply, and then you always end up with a freezer full of milk when you're done that you need to give away because you're just stressed out about having enough milk. So it's just a common concern I think any mom's going to have when they go back to work is, do they have enough milk for their baby? And you just worry about pumping enough and it to be long enough, and especially in our busy schedules, So that's just, and yeah, you're worried about the number. How many ounces is it? You're sitting there measuring each one. Move with 5 more minutes so I can get half more ounce.
And unfortunately, we've now that formulas become sort of the norm, there's just the ounces.
The ounces is kind of the thing. So with formula, the quantity is actually so much different than with breast milk, but a lot of moms don't know that. And so and feeding times and everything sort of. It's really interesting how many times I have to type the exact same statement on the Electrolyte Facebook page of a breastfed baby only needs 2 to 4 ounces at a feeding, whereas a formula-fed baby does increase throughout the year. And that's a major difference, and it's a big confusion in society. And moms will say, no, my breastfed baby's taking 8 ounces at a feeding out of a bottle. I'm like, wow. And so paste feeding would be a really good idea for you. And so there's a YouTube video. Those statements are again and again and again. And Kim and I were sitting next to each other. We were both shocked that one mom who was pumping a freaking gallon said that she wasn't producing enough by 5 months. And we were both like, this is not even possible. You had so much. But yeah, that was so sad.
She said it was more her husband was worried she wasn't making enough, and it was kind of pressure on her partner who's on. Okay, Orange.
My husband and I talked about breastfeeding and pumping, and I think the pumping is more because we both want him to be involved as well. Now, is there a recommended time then that I should wait before we actually start the process, or the longer you wait, does that mean my supply will be better, or?
So her question is, she and her husband have talked about her pumping milk so that he can also help feed the baby, but she knows she shouldn't start pumping right away. So she was wondering, is there an ideal time for her to start pumping so she has extra milk?
I still will talk. I just was waiting.
trying to be generous. Not her, it's fine. So everybody in this room who knows me will have heard this exact same speech. If you want your husband to, let's say, give a bottle in the middle of the night, it's the thing I get all the time. My husband wants to help me, wants to give a bottle in the middle of the night so I can sleep. That's great. If you get up at the exact same time and pump while he's giving that bottle. Because every time he takes a bottle feeding and you're not feeding the baby, you're giving your body the message not to produce milk at that time. There are a million other ways that your sweet husband, and there's some men in the room, and there's a sweet husband over there, there are a million other ways that he can bond with that baby. Feeding does not have to be one of them. You should really look at other ways like, where is Liz? Hold your hand up. Hold it higher. Liz owns Go Baby Go, which is located on Broadway, and Go Baby Go sells a variety of baby carriers. Your husband should have his very own baby carrier, and he should carry that baby all the time and bond with it that way. The bath, what other ways?
Diapers.
Bath is a good one. Diaper changes. There's so many things.
Burping.
So many things. And right around the middle of the first year of life, when you start giving solid foods, then that would be great for him to do. Okay, all the way at the top.
This is for her. When your husband wants to feed that baby, you can put the baby to your breast and squeeze the
Did everyone hear her comment? Yes? Yes. Okay.
So I think there's, I know some people might hate this, but she was exclusively breastfed for a year, and I'm now tandem nursing both of them. And I've had zero issues with breastfeeding either of them, and I would almost call it easy and instinctive. And I think there's a lot that goes into the society about breastfeeding that they say it's hard. It is so hard. And, you know, I want women to know that it doesn't have to be hard. You know, because I think there's a lot of dread that goes into that when they get to the point of. Can you give her the mic, please?
Yeah, I'll repeat it.
Okay, where, you know, there's, you know, dread and fear that it's gonna be really hard and it's gonna be super painful and they will never get through it because that's been built up in their minds by, you know, many people around them. Luckily I have a very good support system and my mom breastfed all four of her children, but a lot of women don't have that in society. And I just want them to know, you know, it's what a lot of people need to do.
So she was saying that she thinks it's important for women to know that breastfeeding doesn't necessarily have to be difficult. It doesn't have to be hard, and that when women get that message, sometimes they set themselves up for failure because they go into it thinking it's going to be horrible, and you know, so they don't really go for it. I think on the other side, though, you also sometimes women need to know that it's okay if it is hard work, and a lot of times it takes a while to establish it. So don't give up too soon because it's more difficult than you think it's going to be. But she's saying don't. It's bad when you tell everybody that it's going to be so difficult that they talk themselves out of it. Sorry.
Yes.
Yeah.
She wants to talk. She wants the mic.
I didn't look for a support group because I thought that was just something that was gonna happen.
So she was saying she had the opposite experience where she really assumed it was going to be easy because it's so natural, and then so she didn't seek help for a while because it, you know, when she had a harder time, she thought it should be easier. So which I think is more what we see on our end at least, is that, you know, people assume it's going to be easy because it is the best thing and because it's natural, it should be easy, and for a lot of women it just isn't that simple. So you're going to find experiences on either side, and there's support for everybody. And this is Mickey Mouse. Any other questions?
Yeah, in the front, right here. Front.
Oh, right here.
I guess I just got confused. If your baby is like a year old, how many ounces of breast milk should
So her question was, if your baby is a year old, how many ounces of breast milk should he or she be drinking? 2 to 4. The interesting thing about breast milk, and the movie didn't really address, didn't really talk about breast milk, really, right? Breast milk changes for you minute to minute, hour to hour, day to day, season to season. So we live in Texas, so your breast milk has a higher watery content as opposed to if we lived in Alaska, right? So that's why we don't have to give a baby water, because the breast milk takes care of it. And then the breast milk for a newborn baby does a lot of stuff to help grow their immature brain. But for a 1-year-old, it's breast milk for a kid that's running around and super active. So it changes constantly for that baby. Instead of changing in quantity, it changes in quality.
So if I have breast milk frozen when he wasn't born, can I still give it to him?
You can still give him so she asked if she could still give her newborn frozen breast milk to her 1-year-old child. You could still give it because it's still good, but that's part of what I hate about people storing 8,000 ounces of milk, is because why would I want to give newborn breast milk to a 1-year-old child, right? You really want to give the milk closer to the date that you pumped it. So when people say to me on Pinterest, everyone knows I love Pinterest. On Pinterest, I saw that I need 1,000 ounces of milk before I go back to work. Well, no, the majority of the women that I know pump today what their baby eats tomorrow, and pump for that day or the next day. Like that. And on Friday they pump for Monday. So really you want to give it sort of closer to the day.
And also for anyone who's ever considering donating breast milk, they actually will not accept, I know that the milk bank in Austin will not accept donors whose babies are over a year. So if you're a woman who's sitting on a bunch of old breast milk, you can start cycling through it so that, I don't know how to do that word, or give away the old stuff before it's too old to donate if you're making plenty. So that if you're still continuing to nurse after a year and had wanted to donate, at least you're donating at a time where they'll accept your milk when you're just have it piling up in your freezers.
Anything else? We'll have time for 1 or 2 more, and then we'll be good. Anything else?
Anybody else?
Did you have?
Questions? Comments?
Anything else? Yeah. Oh, one more?
Yes, ma'am.
I just have a question about, to kind of piggyback on that. So when they are older, how do you know, like, he was a nurse, he was like twice a day now. So I guess I was going to call the doctor actually tomorrow and see, should I be giving him other milk or other kind of dairy?
So she's asking, as your baby gets older, like over a year, and then they're still, they're nursing, but maybe not as often, a couple times a day before they go to sleep, those kind of things. When do you start introducing other, like cow's milk or other dairy things in place of the breast milk, or in addition to?
Still wants to nurse, but
None of us on the panel are pediatricians, so I'll just preface it with that. But we don't ever have to drink non-species specific milk, right? So my breast milk is not dairy. I don't need to replace that with dairy, but you do need to replace it with other fluids, because otherwise you'll see constipation happen. So they need enough fluids to help the food come through, poop come out easily, but it doesn't have to be any, And really the recommendation there is because of calcium and the different vitamins and what you need to do. I'll lean over. And because it's the Tina show. What you need to be doing is making sure they get a really well-balanced diet. But there are some great books out there that talk to you about looking at the week of what they consume, not the day. So with a toddler, you want to look at what they eat over the whole week as opposed to just today.
And then you should also have a pediatrician giving you good advice. Be comfortable with your pediatrician to discuss that with them so they can see the baby on the growth chart.
One more.
Yes.
If there is one more. Yes, Nikki.
What can doctors, midwives, and doulas do to help encourage moms and help them have more success with their breastfeeding?
Okay, so her question is, what can doctors and midwives and doulas and the birth professionals do to help encourage breastfeeding and make it better, easier, and more accessible for moms? Kim's going to take this one.
I can do the provider part. basically talking about it at your prenatal visits. Like, how do you plan to feed the baby? And, you know, what do you know about breastfeeding? Introducing the breastfeeding classes that are offered at the hospital or through lactation services. And then we do like 2-week and 6-week checkups, and we, you know, after we see them in the postpartum unit, reinforce the breastfeeding, make sure they're getting the good lactation consultant help that they need. When we see them at their 2-week visit, we talk about, are you going back to work? What is your plans for keeping up with the breastfeeding and that kind of thing? And help them with resources and that kind of, you know, whatever they need to help them be successful and do what they need to do. And if they feel like they're not going to be able to have enough time to pump or something like that, at least usually I'll tell them, well, you don't have to, you know, if you don't want to be the whole milk supply, that's fine. Just at least give them some every day, just so they're getting the good stuff. If you have to supplement, it's okay. As long as they're getting some of your good stuff every day, it's fine. So try not to also make them not feel guilty if they don't feel like they can't do it exclusively or not. But mainly it's talking about it beforehand, because sometimes I'll talk to a patient and they'll be like, oh, I don't know if I want to do that, or I don't know if I feel comfortable with that. And then once we start talking about it, and then they get more comfortable, and so then they actually start considering doing.
And I agree, because since I work at a hospital, you know, come from that perspective, we see moms that come in and they, you know, we have them for 24 hours basically, and they really have no idea about breastfeeding. They haven't thought about it, they haven't gone to a class. The earlier you can start preparing them, giving them ideas, friends talking about the benefits of it, going to class, makes such a difference, because in that short period in the hospital, it's really a late time to try to do all the education that you want to do.
Yeah, and just to sort of add on to that, I mean, just as a doula, and even as a midwife or as a childbirth educator, you want to talk to them about, I mean, the whole movie was actually kind of upsetting to me just in a couple of different ways, but the birth experience of that one mom where the baby had been gone for an extremely long period of time, you know, so as a childbirth educator, as a doula, talking to them about, you know, ways to make sure that their baby stays with them or comes back sooner and that kind of thing. You know, Nikki, who I'm talking to directly, who is a doula, and I am her fellow doula. You know, the majority of my childbirth clients, my doula clients, don't have their babies bathed. Shaw.
You have to realize one thing, I agree, but you're coming from the perspective of moms. Coming from the perspective, this is the thing, you know, the moms who are seeking out doulas, so they want to have, they've already found, you know, natural birth, the childbirth experience, being educated about breastfeeding. But then you have another whole set of people that really don't have that education that we have to reach. That's the hardest thing, where moms are coming in and dads, and you know, that they really end up being bombarded by a lot of old wives' tales and different information. So I think it's just a whole different, there's different people out there that we have to reach, and like when they come, different programs to start educating early. You got the clientele that really, and it's great, but they want that, they're looking for it.
I don't know who else is in the room from San Antonio Birth Doulas, but San Antonio Birth Doulas goes out and talks in high schools and to Medicaid clients and that kind of thing, and really talks about the choices that they have, and they need to know that there are choices, and not to, you know, and to know the earlier that they give the baby the breast, the better.
Kids in high school.
And honestly, like every single one of you in this room, please just breastfeed in public. Like, please do it. Like, the more, if every single one of you would just whip out your boob in public, then it would become like the norm. And my 18-year-old son knows what boobs are for, but maybe other 18-year-olds don't know what they're for. Yeah. More with just kind of piggybacking onto what Kim said about asking him early in their prenatal care. Also, not just stopping with how do you plan to feed your baby, but like if they do say breastfeeding, okay, what are you doing to prepare for that? Talk about breastfeeding classes, and if they say bottle, you know, kind of investigate. Don't, again, not making them feel bad, but also asking them, you know, what it is that made them choose that. If they have questions about breastfeeding, or you know, because sometimes you can address what it is they're concerned about and actually, you know, give them more information so that they make the choice to breastfeed and don't just assume that, oh, I'm just going to bottle feed because X, Y, or Z. So I think, you know, asking more questions than just the simple, you know, are you going to do A or B?
Every single one of us in this room should become a breastfeeding advocate. Like, talk to your nieces and nephews, talk to your siblings. Like, just talk to everybody about it and make it an open thing. I mean, I was more of the, it was super easy
Well, thank you guys, and thank you guys for coming out tonight. I want to thank Alamo Draft House for making this possible too. It's very helpful with all of our needs. And